Okay, we're ready.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to welcome you all to this meeting of the Sustainability Board on February 7th. We'll start with the call to order, which I just did, and I see we do have quorum. Could you please do the roll call?
Yep, sure will. Mr. DeGroot? Miss Halquest?
Here.
Miss Marone?
Here.
Miss Oliver?
Here.
Mr. Osmond? Mr. Peschel?
Here.
Mr. Spambauer?
Here.
Mr. Wojciechowski? And Michelle is excused. And Miss Davy?
Here.
Okay, that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Excellent, that works. Is there anyone here who would like to make a public comment tonight? Seeing none, we will move on to the approval of minutes from the January 3rd meeting. I'd accept a motion to accept those.
I'll make a motion to accept the January minutes.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second that.
Thank you. That was Pat. All in favor of approving the minutes as written? We'll have to wait for the roll call that Brandon's going to do.
Yep. Okay, so this is roll call for the minutes. Miss Halquest?
Okay.
Miss Marone?
Aye.
Miss Oliver?
Aye.
Mr. Osmond? Oh, sorry, he's not here. Mr. Peschel?
Aye.
Mr. Spambauer?
Aye.
And Miss Davy?
Aye, and I believe we also have Mr. Wojciechowski now.
Oh, okay. Hey, Aaron. Aaron, we're approving the minutes. Would you like to say an aye or an A or an A for the minutes?
Sure. Aye.
Thank you. And Michelle's excused, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Thank you, Brandon. Well, with that, I think that we will go to the Wisconsin Saltwise presentation and discussion. Brandon or Brad, would you like to perform an introduction for us?
Sure, I can. We have Allison Madison here from Wisconsin Saltwise, who's going to be giving us a presentation on the importance of, kind of mitigating the effects of salt in the environment. I met Allison at the Sustainability Annual Meeting for UW System and thought it was a really great presentation and a really certainly timely presentation for, we're still in kind of the middle of winter here and lots of folks using salt. I think it's really important to, I learned some very interesting facts about just how little salt we can apply that can raise things to levels where there's some concern. So I'm really happy to have Allison here to do a presentation for us.
All right. Thank you, Brad, and thank you everyone for your time this evening. I did want to add in that I reviewed, thanks to, I think Brandon sent to me, the presentation that was given to all of you last year by the students from UW Oshkosh. So they had reached out to me and I was able to review that and also speak with James. Is it Robbie? I hope I mispronounce his last name, who's the director of Public Works in Oshkosh. So I was able to talk with him and his staff a little bit last week. And they've attended the smart salting training they'll be talking about a little bit and have implemented a lot of the best practices in the city of Oshkosh. So your municipal programming is going really well, but I think there's definitely some room to improve what's happening as far as messaging going out to citizens and support to businesses and contractors, etc. So with that, I will jump into a few prepared slides. Feel free to ask questions at any time here. Right. It looks like everyone can see my first slide with the outline of Wisconsin. Can someone say yes? Yeah, okay, great. So Wisconsin Saltwise started in the Madison area with the city of Madison, Dane County, the sewerage district, the water utility, all concerned with growing concentrations of salt, primarily in the form of chloride showing up in water. And in 2021, we began to work statewide, connecting with other organizations and municipalities across the state that are concerned and working around the issue of fluoride reduction, freshwater salinization, which is really an emerging global problem as we've been applying tons, literally, I mean, hundreds of thousands of tons to our landscape, right? And all of that salt that we put down goes into our freshwater. So again, the Fund for Lake Michigan has helped us to take this work statewide, but it's also through the financial support of the partners you see here. So again, literal mountains of salt that we bring into Wisconsin. None of the salt that we are using for roads, water softeners in the form of potassium chloride fertilizers, it's not coming from Wisconsin. We're bringing it in here and we are putting it eventually into our water, either surface water or groundwater. And Wisconsin Saltwise works to educate citizens, contractors, municipal staff about this growing problem and also give them action steps, best practices. So shoveling first, right? Getting out there, removing as much snow as we can mechanically, whether that be with, plow blades at the municipal level or your shovel and ice scraper on your own driveway and sidewalk. Scattering salt, so using salt just as needed, making sure, municipal salt trucks are calibrated annually, which I know does happen in Oshkosh. And then people are using correct rates. So with your driveway, as you can see here, a 20-foot driveway is only a 12-ounce cup of salt is enough for that. At the municipal level, I know that the city of Oshkosh is using 300 pounds of salt per lane mile. I'd say that's in an acceptable range, potentially could kind of try to push that down a little bit. But they're also using liquid salt, so salt brine, to help reduce the total amount of salt needed by brining before the storm. Then switching, so we really need to make sure that no one is putting salt down when temperatures get below 15. Salt is not very effective at that point. And so we need to switch and not continue to put salt down on ice, snow-packed roads. It's not going to be effective. And then there is the smart salting program. So trying to get more contractors, city staff, school district staff, anybody who's doing work, whether it be roads, parking lots, sidewalks, to get this information on best practices so that they can protect your waterways and infrastructure. So one more S that didn't make it onto this list is to sweep. So if too much salt does go down, making sure that those spills or over application are swept up, that salt can be reused. So here's a photo. Like I said, it's not just damaging our waterways, it's also damaging infrastructure and the carbon costs that are implicated with repairing, whether it be sidewalks, roads, bridges, door jams, all of those things sooner than they need to through the premature aging caused by salt. And then, of course, all of this salt is headed to our water. So in the Madison area, there's been a lot of data collection for decades looking at the slow but steady increase of salt in all of the Madison lakes, right? The city has been putting salt down for decades and it's going into our water. In Oshkosh, the same thing is true, right? I grabbed this slide. The Fox Wolf Watershed Alliance runs a volunteer citizen science monitoring program that's also supported by the Isaac Walton League. So community members going out, grabbing samples of water. This was from December of last year, 237 milligrams per liter of chloride. So at 237 is just above the EPA limit for chronic exposure. So if organisms, the EPA says if organisms are exposed to that concentration of salt over time, it's going to have negative impacts on their growth, reproduction, susceptibility to parasites. It's a stressor, right? Just like drinking soda all the time or salt all the time for us is a stressor on our system. So in Wisconsin, the DNR has set a slightly higher limit at this point, although the trend right now, as more and more science is coming out, is to lower these numbers. So Canada has a chronic exposure limit under 200. Michigan just passed one under 200 milligrams per liter as well. So what does this 395 that we have in Wisconsin currently mean? It's 1 teaspoon of salt per 5 gallons of water, brings us up to that 395 milligram per liter toxic threshold for aquatic organisms. So we're seeing impacts like I said, reduction in growth rate. This research coming out of the University of Toledo with Bill Hintz, who spoke last year at the Wisconsin Salt Awareness Week seminars. Additionally, some of the first organisms that are impacted aren't necessarily the largest, kind of most recognizable species, but actually small zooplankton that hold a really important place in the food web. As you see here, they eat algae. So as salt concentrations go up, that's leading to greener, murkier waters. And then of course, their food source, right? So less zooplankton means less food and fewer organisms as we make our way up the food chain. Again, research coming out of University of Toledo. Additionally, as we are salting our waters, we're seeing salt concentrations increase most at the lowest levels in lakes, lowest depths. And salt, of course, salt water is more dense than fresh water. And so it actually can prevent lakes from turning over, which naturally happens in the spring and the fall in Wisconsin, redistributing oxygen and nutrients throughout the water column. So this can have really huge implications in our freshwater lakes. In addition to impacts on surface water, we're seeing salt, as I mentioned, increase in our municipal wells and our groundwater, which is our drinking water. This is actually from Middleton, just outside of Madison, where I live. One of the wells in my community is now up to 160 milligrams per liter in chloride, and naturally should be 0. I was able to grab a little bit of data. This is a little outdated. I would encourage you to dig into chloride concentrations in Oshkosh. So this is from the DNR Drinking Water System Portal website. Just grabbed this last week. We see some 2017 values at 25. So great, you're way under what I'm getting from one of my municipal wells, but still not 0, right? And of course, with the salt we put down, it's only going to be trending upward. And I don't know, didn't look to try to grab the most recent data. Wasn't able to easily. But you can grab also data from private wells in the Oshkosh area from the Stevens Point Well Water Viewer. So that shows just outside of Oshkosh. Now this is down to the section level, and we see some chloride concentrations between 50 and 100 milligrams per liter. So what do I encourage you to do? A few different things. Make sure that you're educating citizens. You're the sustainability board, and I feel like a lot of citizens don't understand that salt is a permanent pollutant in our freshwater, and you can do that easily through social media. Easiest way, just like and retweet, have the city like and retweet SaltWise posts, get the word out, and or create your own posts. Show off what the city is doing at the municipal level and urge citizens to do their part and be SaltWise in their own homes and communities. I have here train streets, parks, and contracted crews. So your municipal staff, street staff is already attending smart salting trainings. Continue to send them, continue to encourage them to attend Wednesday webinars. We have monthly webinars on different topics around salt reduction, the use of brine, best practices. There's a lot of new work going on both in the world of research as well as the technical kind of applied side of improving winter maintenance. And then we also have open house events across the state for municipal and private contractors. And then I would also really highly encourage you, since you work for the city or you're part of encouraging what happens at the municipal level, to really assess current ordinances and are those in the community's best interest, really, with regards to salt. So I'll dive into that in just a second. Here are a couple posts from City of Eau Claire, Milwaukee, showing off what they're doing, urging people, be patient if your street's not, taken care of perfectly yet. Letting people know that it's going to take a little bit of time. Don't go out there if you don't have to, and don't, call and complain that it's not completely bare pavement immediately. We need to change those expectations. And then this is the City of Milwaukee showing the use of brine. They're using best practices. Here are a couple examples of SaltWise tweets. So letting people know 1 teaspoon of salt pollutes 5 gallons of water, showing off some salt reduction stories from Corey from the City of Eau Claire, some private contractors at an open house work that the DOT is doing. I was up in your neck of the woods this summer. I led a SaltWise paddle in Kakana with the Fox Wolf Watershed Association. And then that led to another paddle with the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh. And we got people out monitoring chloride, learning about the issue, and maybe becoming monitors through the Fox Wolf program. So again, we offer these smart salting workshops. We had one last week, have one this coming week. Equipment open houses, getting operators to talk with one another about best practices, what's working, what's not, brainstorming. Like I said before, monthly webinars that provide a lot of information on salt options, the municipalities and contractors. And then, like I said, taking a look at ordinances. So I did a little bit of sleuthing last week in preparation for this presentation. And taking a look at your snow shoveling ordinance, currently it says when ice cannot be removed, the sidewalk and handicap ramps, crosswalk accesses should be kept sprinkled with materials to accelerate melting and prevent slipping. Is this the message that we want out to citizens? They have to keep something down on their snow or they might be fined. So I think this is really sending the wrong message to your citizens. The science is not behind keeping sidewalks sprinkled with salt, right? Your municipality is not putting down salt when temperatures get really low. So we don't want people to be in fear that if they don't put more salt and more salt down, that they're going to be held responsible for that. So in converse, I would encourage you to educate citizens that the sidewalks that get damaged, need repairs, and that they're financially partially responsible for, that this damage is caused, in fact, by that excess salt that goes down and we see sitting on sidewalks when all the snow and ice is gone. So here's my contact information, and I'm happy to take any questions. Like I said, I pushed that sidewalk message, but I think also just taking a look at instead of having a punitive message in your ordinances right now around salt, can we have some positive messaging? Can we set expectations for appropriate salting, both by citizens as well as school districts, anybody who's doing salt work, using salt in your community?
Thanks, Allison. Does anybody have any questions for her or comments?
I do if I can go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say thank you, Allison, and I think this is exactly the kind of thing I was looking for. Is maybe having us as a board look at that language and draft something slightly different, because I think you're right. I think there's a better way to let people know. About how they should be dealing with precipitation during these cold months. So it seems like this is a good actionable item for this group to take on.
I was wondering, I have one question. Below 15 degrees, you said you use a different ice melter than salt, or that people should. What sort of compounds are those? Are they better for the environment, I take it?
No.
No? Okay.
No, there's no environmentally friendly de-icer. So right now there are no truth in labeling laws around de-icers. So companies can say they're pet friendly or environmentally friendly, or they melt down to negative 50 degrees, and lies, unfortunately. If it's a de-icer, we say that it's not going to be good for the environment. Below 15, what we generally recommend is that people switch to sand, just an abrasive to create some traction on top of the ice. You can go for magnesium chloride, calcium chloride. Again, you hear that last word in there, chloride, right? There are still salts. They still contain chloride, but they do work at lower temperatures. So sometimes you could purchase those de-icers, but they are quite a bit more expensive. And so we really just encourage people to switch to sand at that point. I mean, I saw a neighbor down the street who had put some ash down from a fireplace, I'm assuming, when it was really, really cold on top of the ice. But I think getting people to recognize if you put a lot of salt down on ice when it's really cold, it's just going to be sitting there, or you're going to have to put a lot down. It's just not effective at really cold temperatures.
Is the ash good?
For creating some traction. Mhm.
Okay, not like everybody has ash, I'll grant you.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard
Yeah,
of
did
people
you-
say, put down bird seed as well, to create some traction. Some people talk about kitty litter. I don't have a cat, so I haven't, like purchased that, for that purpose. But I usually have a little bit of
That's for
salt and
used.
sand.
Okay, Pat, did you have your hand up? No? Okay. Mr. Robbie, I think you're on. Is there anything that you would like to share with us?
Yes, Miss Davy, I am here. Just a couple of things, as Miss Madison indicated, we had a very good conversation last week. Our staff at the Streets Division have been attending not only the Saltwise trainings, but prior to that, some other trainings that have been hosted by the Fox Wolf Watershed Alliance. It's been a point of emphasis with me in the department to get staff into some of these trainings so they understand, why we don't just crank the Salter wide open and drive down the road. There's a reason we do calibration, not just from an environmental standpoint, but it's a cost standpoint. When we're putting too much salt down and it's not doing anything, it's wasting money, in addition to costing us environmentally. So we have been very proactive in sending our staff to these trainings. On average, I think we've been sending 2 to 3 staff per year, as I recall. So it takes us some time to cycle everyone through, but we've been sending them to training. I think, one of the biggest challenges that we face is changing the expectation. Allison mentioned that we need to change the expectation of the public. And I think that is going to be the biggest challenge that we face. There seems to be an expectation of, well, geez, it hasn't even quit snowing yet. Why isn't the street bare? Well, the city of Oshkosh does not have a bare pavement policy. In fact, our snow and ice removal policy, we don't even go into residential streets unless we've gotten more than, 3 inches of snow, or if we're, dealing with some particular issues. So it is very much trying to educate the public and get them to understand, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and get their expectations to be changed.
Aaron?
Thank you. I had a question, Amanda. Do you have, or does your group have like a social media kit or like talking points or something that we can use to, promote and, just wanting to make sure we're saying the right things. But I wanted to, try to do what you're saying about educating the public and, encouraging them on these things.
Yeah, thank you, Erin. And again, my name is Allison, Allison Madison. It rhymes. So, yes, we have all of those things. I send out a social media toolkit right now to all partners across the state, anybody who's interested in getting it, with a number of different social media posts that could be used from Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, with text. We also have some different resources on our website that are available for municipalities to share, flyers, handouts, and I put together newsletters quarterly as well with other language that can definitely be used. We're all about creating resources that can be used across the state, so not everyone has to start and reinvent the wheel every time. So happy if anyone wants to just send me an email. I know I've got right now Brad and Brandon's email, but would be happy to be in touch with communications staff from the city if it wanted to come up from the city, or if you have your own sustainability board social media accounts, we could send it out through there as well.
Yes to all the above. Excuse me. Does anybody else have any questions for Allison or comments? Bob, go ahead.
Sure. I just have one. Your slide that you put up with your email address, you moved through it pretty quick and I didn't get a chance to write it down. So if you could just provide us your email address again, that would be wonderful.
All right, I'll put that in the chat right now.
Okay. And then the other thing that I would say is that I can forward this information on at the school district level to the
Great.
facilities people because I sit on the school board. So, and that's, I'll make that connection.
That would be wonderful, Bob. Yeah, just this summer, we had the city of Superior send there in like the school district and staff. I think there were like 60 individuals who all attended this smart salting training. And I did put my email into the chat. It's wisaltwise@gmail.com. It looks like Vic has a question.
Vic has a question, yes.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could put the slide back up by chance that had the city of Oshkosh language in it, just for a moment.
Yep.
Okay, so it does say handicap ramps, crosswalk accesses shall be kept sprinkled with materials. So in order to be ADA compliant, you have to remove all ice and snow. So I'm just curious if our language even matches the ADA compliance at all. Like it's not an option for ice to not be removed, I guess is what I'm
Like
getting
probably
at.
not.
Right. And I just be working in healthcare, we're obviously very conscious of ADA compliance rules and laws and regulations and stuff. So I was just a little concerned and wanted to just reread the language one more time. So I just think that would be another key factor in why we need to change this language, seeing as ADA compliance is very, very huge for our government entity. So thanks. That was really more of a comment than a question.
No worries. Yeah.
Thank you, Vic.
Miss
I
Davy,
have
if
another
I may.
question for James. Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead. You had something to say.
Yes, I was just going to say that, as we make sure that we're reviewing how this code section fits with ADA, that we make sure we're reviewing the right-of-way ADA compliance requirements, because there are different requirements for the public right-of-way versus private property.
Okay, but the homeowner would still be responsible for clearing in front of their street, right?
Yes, the
Even
municipal
if it's
code.
public right of way?
Yes, that's the way our municipal code is defined, is that the adjacent property owner is responsible for that clearing.
Okay, so if you happen to live in front of a bus stop or a ramp, you would have different requirements as a homeowner than you might if you just have a sidewalk?
No, what I'm saying is the ADA requirements are different within the public right-of-way than they are on private property. There's two different sections of the ADA requirements. One deals specifically with public right-of-way. A second deals specifically with private property. So I just want to make sure as we're reviewing this that we make sure that we're reviewing it against the correct section of the ADA.
Okay, and to be clear, any sidewalk would be public right of way?
Any
Oh,
sidewalk, yeah, any of the sidewalk that section of the code is referring to is the public right-of-way sidewalk. So, the sidewalk that runs parallel to the street, in the right-of-way.
Okay. Bob, did you have something?
No, I was gonna ask for the same clarification that you just asked for.
Okay, one more question for you, James. Do we use sand or anything when it gets below 15? What do we do in Oshkosh?
We do not use sand. We have on occasion used chips, which is a coarser material than sand, but a very fine stone material. So we have on occasions when we've had ice buildup that we've not been able to remove and pavement temperatures are below 15 degrees, we have used stone chips as a traction material.
Okay, and is there a reason that we don't use sand? Is that cost-based or availability or?
A little bit of cost based and a lot more of cleanup based. The sand being a finer material will have more of a tendency to, as it leaves the road surface, won't get trapped in catch basins, but may travel down the storm sewer system. So it leaves us with more cleanup and maintenance of the storm sewer system. So using the stone chip material is much more likely to get captured in our catch basins with inlets. And it does. It's easier for us to clean up afterwards is the primary reason we've gone that route.
And I would add that there's no environmental, I would say not gonna be a big difference between sand versus if it's limestone chips. It's just some sort of material that's used for abrasive, acknowledging that it's below 15, it's really cold. Dumping salt down on ice is not the solution, so let's switch.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions, comments, thoughts? Okay.
Allison, I just pulled up the DNR's website, and for 2020, the Oshkosh Waterworks monthly chloride testing appeared to be hovering right around 20 milligrams per liter.
Okay.
And our treatment plant is surface water; it's not groundwater.
Okay. Thank you, James.
So a little,
I did want
more
to
in those few years.
pull up one other option here is if there are unnecessary sidewalks or steps, closing down different entrances. So another kind of salt-wise hack, this of course being from UW-Madison. So taking an excess kind of entryway out of commission. We don't need to worry about people slipping and falling. We don't need to worry about putting salt down. Let's just not maintain this during the winter and explain why. So I thought I'd throw that out there as people were talking about ADA and special needs.
Great, thank you. Well, unless anybody else has anything to add to this discussion, we will tell you thank you so much, Allison. We appreciate you coming tonight and sharing this with us. I'm sure you'll make sure Brandon has a full set of the slides you used, and he would also, I'm sure, love to have that media kit, right, Brandon?
Yeah, if you want to send over the social media kit, that'd be great.
All right, well, thank you all. Take care. Please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, well, that was fun. Moving on, let's go to the review of the Sustainability Board process. We have a presentation and discussion. Is that you, Lynn? No? Brandon? Kelly?
Yeah, but that's
I think it's us. I was waiting to see if he was going to say anything, but he's not, so I'll jump in.
go ahead.
I'm the city attorney, Lynn Lawrenson, I think I know pretty much everybody. And I also have Amy Vandenhogen on, who is the assistant city attorney. And you should have received with your materials for tonight's meeting an updated manual for the board that included updated board and commission rules. The city council adopted an updated set of general board and commission rules in December of last year. And so we just wanted to update your manuals and present some of that information to you. So for a number of you, it's a refresher. For maybe a couple, it might be something that they haven't had a chance to hear before. But we're going to go through, basically, I'll go through that new set of rules, and then Amy will kind of take over, and she's going to go through some good general information that's included with from the statutes and such that is included in the manuals, and then you have the manuals for your reference. So with the updated rules, the council added a couple of new areas to what were the existing rules, and then we also reorganized them a little bit to hopefully make it a little easier to read. We put things into sections, so I'll kind of walk through the different sections. The first one was the scheduling and location of meetings. I think most of this stuff was already in the existing rules. It was maybe just not laid out quite this clearly. The basic rules are you should schedule regular meetings at a regular time and place, and you guys do. So right now with COVID and remote meeting, they've also included remote participation and remote appearances. We are an all in, all out. You're either all remote or all in person with the boards and commissions. That's just purely, honestly, a staffing issue. We talked about it, and as staff, as we were reviewing this, and we just do not have the IT staff and some of the other staff to be able to do hybrid for every board and commission, and then trying to pick and choose was not a great option. So it's either all remote like we are tonight, or all in person. Now the exception is when we do get back to normal meetings and we can all be in a room and discussing things. We did build in some limited exceptions for remote appearances that weren't available before, because we're all getting a little better at all of this stuff. There are some things that as the particularly the IT and the media staff reviewed, they said, you know, these things we can do with all the boards and commissions. If we have an ADA issue that can't otherwise be accommodated, the person can't write a letter or can't convey their message in another way, we can possibly allow that kind of remote participation. We're asking, if you get a request like that, that it goes through your staff liaison. The staff liaison works with IT and works with the media and tries to facilitate that. So that's how that works. But we also built it in so that if you would have a presentation like you did tonight, you wouldn't have to have that person necessarily drive up, particularly in Wisconsin in February, and give the presentation. So I think that's something that's really good that changed in the rules. It gives you a little more flexibility when we do get back to whatever the new normal is going to be and we're back in person. So I wanted to highlight that for you. At that point, though, members must be physically present to participate and vote. It is for the actual meeting, and for the members, you need to be present to participate and vote. Otherwise, you do have the option to have alternates. Every board and commission has that ability, and we'll talk about alternates as we get down a little later in the rules. But if you're not able to be there physically, you can monitor it, but you can't participate from afar. Again, the no hybrid kind of thing. The remote rules are basically the same, the ones we're living with now. There's no guarantee that your system's going to work. Actually, I had a little trouble getting on tonight. And I have a brand new computer, so I don't know what the issue was, but it just shows you there is no guarantee. We have to speak clearly. When you're not speaking, you mute your system. And votes have to all be by roll call vote. And I was very proud of you for catching it, Marty. So the second section is our rules of procedure. This is a new, the first section of this is a new section on rules pertaining to placement of matters on agendas. Some boards and commissions and council had asked about a flow chart or a better explanation of where boards and commissions fit into the city structure and kind of how things move from a board and commission to the council and from boards and commissions to each other. It's really hard to write a flow chart for every board and commission and for every instance, but Kelly kind of helped out with that project, and John Fitzpatrick from the personnel office, and we sat down and Alan before he left and tried to work through that as best we could. Again, there's a little flexibility. If you read the language, I threw in my nice little legalese and flexibility language because we're going to need it at some point, because no matter what you think of, something will come up that's a little bit different. So
Lynn,
it does that. Yep.
could I just ask you where you're at in these documents? Or
And I'm gonna have to, I gotta go back and forth between two screens here. So hang on just a
actually,
second.
I'm not even clear if we're on the 22-page sustainability one or if we're on the 32-page everybody one.
The 32-page everybody one.
Okay.
So if you go down to, it kind of starts on the bottom of page 4, and the charts actually, there's some verbiage first, because you know I like my words, and so the charts themselves, I'll just point you to the advisory one because you guys are an advisory board, and that's going to be the one you want to look at. Is on page, it looks like page 10 as I'm pulling it up here.
Okay.
I mean, Lynn, if you have it open on your screen, you're welcome to share if you want, if you think that would be helpful.
I have it open on a different screen because
Oh.
I'm actually.
Okay. Well, I mean, if anybody needs it open, I guess I mean, I could open it too if that'd be more helpful. Otherwise, if everybody has it open and they're following along, then I think we should be good. So do we want to just double check that we're all on the same page here?
Literally.
Right.
So yeah, it's page 10 of the 32-page. It's called Complete Board and Commission Rules Adopted 12/14/2021. And there's a nice pretty color chart that Kelly can take credit for because I like words. I don't do well with pretty colors and charts, and she does better with those things. So we collaborated a little there. As you kind of walk through, and again, I'm going to just focus on this one because there are different, I'll take a step back first, actually. There's different types of boards and commissions. And so what we did is we kind of split it into, there are advisory boards and commissions that look at issues and give advice to the city manager, staff, the council. There are some that act as hearing boards, police and fire commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, Board of Review. And then there are some boards that are independent. The library board is actually a functioning independent board. And then there are some boards like Plan Commission that some things they do are advisory. Some things they make the final determination on. Some, they're kind of a mixed bag. So with those kind of commissions, they're going to have to bounce around a lot more. You guys got it pretty easy because you look at basically this one chart, which is the advisory board. So boards and commissions, in the overall city organization, the city operates under a city manager form of government. So the city council establishes policy, they pass ordinances, adopt the budget, adopt a strategic plan, appropriate the money for everybody, and have that overall vision for the city. The city manager is then the chief executive. That person is responsible for implementing those policies and managing the daily operations, as well as helping the council do all their things. So when we look at boards and commissions, again, when you're advisory, you might be advising the city manager, you might be also advising the council. So it just depends on the particular item in front of you. The addendum at the end of this big long 30-page document actually lists all of the boards and commissions for the city and includes a little summary of each one. So that if you're ever looking like, hey, what does the Plan Commission do? Or what does the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee do? There is that summary. That's a reference for you at the back of those rules. So boards and commissions don't actually assign work to staff. You guys set priorities for the boards and commissions, like kind of like what you just talked about with the SALT. This is something we want to look at, but you can't give direction to staff. Now we want you to do this, this, and this, because they answer, well, in Brandon's case, he answers to Kelly and answers to the city manager, and they have a lot of other things to do. So what the commission does is you set your priorities, and then the time that he's allotted to do this type of work. And again, he has, I don't know what other responsibilities, Plan Commission and planner of the day and all these other things. He has to balance into that. By setting your priorities, that gives him a good idea of when he does have his time allotted for this, that's what he focuses on. So how items are placed on your agendas, they can come from board members, they can come from a suggestion from the public, staff may bring them to you. At that point, the staff liaison, so in your case, it's Brandon, is going to take a look at that, and probably with Kelly's help or with Mark Lyons, his direct supervisor, they're going to look at it and they're going to say, okay, does this fit within the jurisdiction and the responsibilities of the sustainability board? Are they the ones who should be looking at this? And how much time do we have to devote for it? Is it something that requires, you know, some significant expertise for some reason that maybe we don't have on staff and we might have to hire? Or are there other issues involved? They do that first review. And then they'll report back and they'll say, yep, we think this is something we can tackle. Here's kind of the plan that we think works moving forward. Talk it through with the commission. You guys, you know, talk it through, add your points on it, and it maybe moves forward. If it's something that doesn't fit within, and I'm just going blank, I'm trying to come up with a good example, but something that just wouldn't fit within your responsibilities, but it's like, hey, we should take a look at this issue. And they said, you know, this really doesn't fit within your responsibilities. We should look at police discipline and see, you know, that is clearly within the footprint of another board and commission, and it's statutory and everything. They'd say, you know what, we're not going to do that. So, or if they have something that they said, you know, hey, this is something that's just going to take more time than we have available. And they'd come back and they'd tell you that and say, we can't take this up. The commission then can look at it, and you can, if you don't agree with their decision, you can say, okay, well, maybe we'll push it off as a priority. We'll do some more looking for other sources and help just put it off for the time being. Or, hey, we think it really is important. We think you made a mistake. You can take it to the city manager. Ultimately, through your council liaison, you could take it to the council and say, you know, we think this is a priority, but you're going to work through kind of those intermediate steps of, we want to change staff's mind, go to the city manager, go to council to do it. So the charts also build in some reporting back that I have to be honest, I'm not sure. I know some commissions were really good. Their staff people were really good about that. Some were not. And I don't know with this commission if that's been a steady practice or not. It is built into these now, and we've been training staff. hey, no matter what the decision is, take it back and let commission know. Or if something goes to council from your board or commission at the next meeting, report back and say, this went to the council at the last meeting and here's how council voted on it. So that when you guys get done with something, it just doesn't slip into some black hole somewhere and you never hear the follow-up from it. So, and that's more probably for us training staff, but it will hopefully be reflected for you in your agendas and moving forward that you'll get that kind of feedback from staff. The other provisions in the rules, I think, are mostly the same. They're the quorum and voting requirements. A majority constitutes a quorum, a lesser number can adjourn, and a majority vote of those present and voting will pass an action. Members who abstain do not count toward the quorum or the vote. So if you lose your quorum, say you have just barely a quorum for tonight, you want to vote on something and Bob has a conflict and says, I'm not going to participate, I'm not going to vote on this. You don't have a quorum to discuss or vote on that matter. You can either adjourn it to the next meeting, and Bob, even though he could vote to, yes, lay it over to the next meeting when someone else can take it up, and since I have a conflict, I'll vote to adjourn it. But you lose your quorum as to that issue, so don't go ahead and vote on it. If it's something that is time sensitive, it could proceed to council without a recommendation or just based on the staff report. But I think most of the time, probably from your board, it's not going to be as time sensitive. So probably the better thing would be just to adjourn it a meeting when you do have a full quorum that could vote on it. Attendance and excuses. We asked at least 24 hours notice, and that's just a courtesy. If we know we're going to drop below a quorum, so we can let everybody know that we're going to have to reschedule the meeting. And also, if you have alternates, sometimes the alternates on some of the commissions don't always tune in, or they don't think it's as important. If they know they're going to be on deck, then they'll tune in. So it gives us at least a little time to get a hold of them and let them know, hey, we're probably going to need you tomorrow night. Again, coming back to alternates, every board and commission has the option to have 2 alternates. How you choose to use those alternates is up to your board or commission. My only suggestion to you is pick a method and stick to it. Unfortunately, we live in a weird time and people like to read a lot of things into stuff. And so we had actually with one board commission, a question come up of, oh, we think they picked that alternate because that person was going to favor something. And it just happened to be, it was that person's time on deck. And it's just to avoid any kind of people reading anything into who's voting on it. If it's, you have alternate 1 and alternate 2, and we always go to 1 first and then go to 2, that's fine. Or it's alternate 1 on odd numbered months and alternate 2 on even numbered months, or alternate 1 this meeting, next time we need 1, it'll be alternate 2. I don't think we care what the method is, but pick a method and try to stick to it. Just to avoid people reading something in that isn't there. The next section of the rules is that chart of motions. You guys have probably all seen that before. That has not really changed. It's the same chart that we didn't make any changes to it, but it's your most basic motions and topics that are going to come up at your meetings. It's just a lot better version than Robert's Rules of Order for you. So we managed to get it down into a couple pages. He took 900 some pages. So let's see. Other than that, there are some rules about pertaining to individuals addressing boards and commissions. Each board or commission is allowed to make your own rules. Again, my suggestion to you is, you can make whatever rule you want. We'll do every person who comes can have 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever. Or we're going to allow 15 minutes. And when the 15 minutes is up, we cut it out. You can do however you would like. But again, pick a method and stick with it. Because if you start changing from meeting to meeting, people start reading into that something that you probably don't intend. So we do have in the rules, and we've started including on all the agendas, and now I got to go back to your agenda to make sure. Yes, it's on your agendas as well. More information for people who want to provide written comments and send emails, and we put that right on the agendas, and that's formalized in these new rules. And then my last thing is rules of decorum. We've adopted the civility pledge, and we also have a rules for disruptive individuals. Unfortunately, I used to not really spend much time on this. We've had a couple of issues for the city. We've had some issues with other entities in the city. And so our recommendation is if you do get someone who is disruptive, ask them nicely. I'll pick on Amy because she's right in the middle of my screen. Amy, please, stop swearing, settle down. I'm going to have to rule you out of order. She keeps up. Ms. Vandenhogen, if you don't stop, I'm going to have to ask you to sit down now. Your time is up. Nope. Okay, we're going to take a break. And if you are televised, I would have them cut the camera feed at that moment as well. Obviously, if it's more disruptive than that, if you feel that you are in any kind of danger or anyone is in the room is in danger or anything, you call the police. But otherwise, we recommend you take a break, have somebody try to talk to the person, calm them down a little bit. If they don't calm down, unfortunately, then you're going to have to, take that next step. You do have staff who are also getting this training, and they're there to help with these kind of situations as well. It's unfortunate we have to spend time talking about it, but hopefully if we kind of have a plan for how we're going to deal with it, we will never have to deal with it. So now I think I turn over to Amy.
I think you're right.
If anybody has any questions for me on that first part, otherwise we can come back with questions at the end as well.
I just want to ask if you're going to be, if you're going to be covering a walking quorum, or if I should ask.
Yep.
When. Okay.
I'll cover it, but you can ask it whenever. For those of you who are following along in the packet, I'm going to transition over to the 22-page document. It's not super critical that you follow along, though. It's more important just to know, or more important for you just to know that you have it. I'm going to be reviewing things you probably already know about open meetings, public records, and ethics. It's meant as a refresher to keep those concepts kind of top of mind. And then that document is there for you. If you come across something and need more information, you have the reference material for it. But starting with open meetings, Wisconsin is a sunshine state. That means we believe the public is entitled to full and complete information regarding their government, and that meetings of the government need to be open to the citizens. The open meetings law obviously applies to meetings, so it comes down to the question of what is a meeting? And there are two tests that need to be satisfied to make something a meeting. It's the purpose test and the numbers test. Starting with the purpose test, the question you're going to ask yourself is, are you discussing or coming together to get information or discuss a matter that is likely to come before you on the board? So if all of you are at Waterfest one night just enjoying the music, talking about the weather, that's hopefully not 20 degrees out, that's not satisfying the purpose test. A social gathering where you're not discussing board related topics would not satisfy the purpose test. If you start meandering into topics that you would cover here though, like if you decide to go down the SALT path, that would be something to reserve for the board meeting. The numbers test is what it sounds like. You're going to be looking at the amount of you that are convening. The presumption is that half would satisfy the numbers test, but it could be less. So really we're looking at what amount of the body would dictate a direction or a vote. So your quorum is only a majority, and then whatever vote's going to be happening, what is going to, I mean, you have to look at the negative quorum. How many people can basically kill an action? So the numbers could get smaller, if that makes sense. If you satisfy purpose, the purpose test and the numbers test, it's a meeting. And we'll go through in a little bit what that requires. Before I do that, though, I want to go through some special considerations when talking about open meetings. Things that you might not consider, something like written correspondence. Written correspondence generally won't be a meeting because it's generally going to be one way. You're not going to have that back and forth. But the more back and forth you get, the more likely you're going to get into that open meeting territory. So moving on from written correspondence, we have a telephone call. Well, you're starting to get more conversational. Now you have telephone conference calls where more people are involved. Well, now you're probably definitely butting up against the open meetings. Layer on top of that, emails. Well, the problem with emails is the reply all feature. So just that one email to you and you don't do anything with it is probably okay. But the fact of the matter is, in today's day and age, it's so easy to just click reply and reply all, and now you've included a majority of the board members and you're discussing business. You're having a meeting by email and you didn't even intend to. So the AG's office does discourage members from communicating with other members about, the topics that you would discuss by email for that reason, because it's really difficult to control. And we do not want to discourage. I mean, the point of my presentation is not to discourage those conversations. It's just to encourage you to have them at the board meeting. And then to your point, Margie, the walking quorum, this is something to consider where if I talk to Lynn, that's only one person, maybe we haven't met the numbers test yet, and I say, hey, Lynn, here are my thoughts on this issue that's coming up. I think I'm going to vote this way, just letting you know. And then Lynn goes and talks to Brandon and says, I was meeting with Amy. Here's how she's going to vote. Here's how I'm going to vote. And you create this chain where at any one point in time, like Lynn and I might not have satisfied that numbers test, but when you link everyone together, you've created a walking quorum, which would need to be noticed out. And if you don't, you're in violation of open meetings. And Margie, I'll kind of stop right there to make sure I get your question on walking quorum, if you had one.
Okay, actually kind of lost me at the numbers test.
Okay.
I thought that I had learned from Lynn in the past, but she can train me, but that doesn't mean I'm going to retain it. So there's that. I have always operated on the impression that if two of us are meeting together, that's not a problem. If a third person of the board were to join that discussion, say for a topic that those three people were working on, that at that point we would have to notice it as a meeting.
Yes. And
but when you mentioned the numbers test, it sounds like Yeah, it sounds like the number's higher.
So 5 is the presumption, but your quorum is 5, right?
Our quorum is 5, yes.
Right, so majority of your quorum to either vote an item, like to approve or disapprove of an item, would be 3, right? Because if you only have 5 members showing up, 3 of you could either vote to approve or deny a motion.
So that's why our number's at 3.
Yes, the presumption starts at 5, and I apologize if I wasn't clear at that. So the presumption is half, but it, as Lynn trained you, and that's where I was talking about negative quorum, or you have to keep quorum in mind, you work down from that.
Okay. What this means though is that if we want to have a small group work on a particular issue, we have to call it a subcommittee or something and make it an official meeting. If we have 3 people who want to work on something, we could have 2 board members and Brandon work on something, and that doesn't count as 3, right? That's still just 2 because he's a liaison.
Yeah, and I guess I would question.
He
I would
doesn't
be a
vote.
little, if you're really, I mean, if you're really creating a subcommittee to work on something, even if it's 2 people, I would probably notice it, because if you're assigning duties, you know, to this little group and whatever, it doesn't hurt to notice it. And to be honest, I would be surprised if anybody shows up, but at least it's usually better to overdo it and not have people question you than to try to defend something later.
Okay, well then the issue becomes, where can we meet? Do we have to meet at City Hall? Can we meet in a coffee shop? Do we have to meet during business hours? Can we meet at 7 at night?
So you don't have to meet at City Hall, to answer your first question. In terms of can you meet other places, a coffee shop was brought up. That's actually something we even talked about in staff training. There's a lot of considerations to go into when you're moving locations. The first thing is it has to be accessible to the public. So I'm not sure, would the coffee shop be ADA compliant? Could everyone get in? Once they're in, can everyone hear? Does the coffee shop accommodate people who are not buying items? I mean, is it okay for everyone to just be sitting there for a while? And then again, can they hear? Can they participate? Can they access it? Do you need to be videoing it? There's a lot that goes into it. So I'm just going to, I guess, give a caution. The other thing Lynn brought up when we were doing staff training with accessibility, and I don't know the specific example, but I know at one point in time, a citizen was prohibited from going to a certain establishment. We need to provide access to all of our citizens, and if for some reason a citizen can't go to a specific place, we need to take that into consideration.
Would that include if that citizen had a restraining order against them for that place?
Yes.
Okay,
That was the example, yeah, that
thanks, Lynn. I think I know, yeah. Okay, so basically what you're saying is we could meet outside City Hall, but it's going to be a real bear to figure it out. And we probably can't meet on campus somewhere then. And a coffee shop would have to have ADA access. And what was the thing about videoing it? We wouldn't probably be videoing it.
Yeah, and different boards and commissions are different with that, but just if you do record your meetings, technology is something to keep in mind as well.
Subcommittee, you're never, I mean, we don't have enough people to do all the boards and commissions. We're
Yeah.
not gonna video subcommittees.
Yeah, I didn't know you were asking subcommittee specifically.
Oh, yeah, I was. Okay,
Okay.
I see Brad has a question also.
So, this group has talked a lot about doing this, sort of getting smaller groups of us to work on items. Sounds like there's some barriers to that. I'm also curious, what are the rules around so posting the meeting or making the notice of the meeting, even if it's of 2 people, like how far in advance, what level of detail on an agenda, those kinds of things, I guess, are what I'm curious about.
You can put a pin in that for just a minute. You're about a paragraph farther down Amy's outline, and she'll get to it in just a minute.
Yeah, I'll get to you in 1 second, Brad. I'll just finish out what is an open meeting. The last special consideration I wanted to cover was if you as a board member on the Sustainability Advisory Board decide to go to another board or commission to get information that would help you, that may be something you want to tell your staff member about. Because again, if enough of you are going, if 3 of you decide to go to another board or commission, well, now, even though that other board has been noticed out, you would still need to notice out the sustainability board, because now you're all getting together to gather information about something that you may discuss later on at your own board. So again, just better safe than sorry. Tell your staff member if you're considering doing that. And as a final note, again, we are not trying to discourage conversation and the passion you guys have for this board. It's just we want to make sure it's being done at an open meeting. Now to get to your question, Brad, on if it is an open meeting, what is required? First thing is notice. Generally, staff members will take care of this. The notice has to reasonably apprise the public and media of topics that are going to be discussed at the meeting. The notice has to go out at least 24 hours in advance. We do encourage as best practice to at least have that go out 72 hours in advance, but again, the minimum is 24. Closed session, there are some special rules there. Those must be noticed out. I don't think your board runs into closed session all that often, so I'll kind of quick go through there. Accessibility, we kind of already touched on that. It must be reasonably accessible, open to the public, and accessible to people with disabilities. Tape recording and videotaping of a meeting is okay, as long as it doesn't interfere with the conduct of the meeting, as long as that person is not being disorderly or super disruptive with their equipment. Citizen participation.
If I can just, that's when we talk about that, we mean like if somebody would come into your meeting and want to tape record it, as long as they're not, shoving microphones in your face and being disruptive, someone could come in and take pictures or videotape your meeting. But again, you don't have to allow them to disrupt the meeting.
Citizen participation for an open meeting. Statutorily, what the open meeting law requires is our citizens have a right to attend and observe the meeting, but the state statute does not specifically require that citizens be given a chance to speak or participate. That being said, you as a board can make your own rules regarding that. And I think all of our boards and commissions do allow citizen participation of some form. Lynn, you can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I think they all do in some capacity.
I think other than the ones that conduct hearings, that's
yes.
Correct.
So again, it's up to you as a board to determine how you want citizen participation. Do you want it all at the beginning? Do you want time limits on it? All we advise is that you talk about it ahead of time so that when you do have someone here that's prepared to speak for an hour, you already know the rules you have in place to kind of limit that speaker and move on. And then the last thing that's required if it's an open meeting is that minutes are taken and roll call votes of each meeting are taken. Generally, staff's going to do that, so it's not something you need to particularly worry about. And Brad, did I cover what you were, oh, sorry, Margie.
Does that also pertain to a subcommittee meeting? Would we have to have minutes and?
Well, it depends. So There's
If
not
it's an
like a
actual
special,
subcommittee, you would, and you notice the meeting, you would
yes.
should have minutes. If you're not taking votes and a formal action at that, you can, have it say, we worked on X document. And the only vote would be adjourn, but you should, if minutes are a requirement of the statute. Who was there, what the date, time, where it was, who was there, we worked on whatever, adjourn at whatever time. They don't have to be fancy minutes, but they are required to be kept.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Amy.
All right, so the next section, if we are good on open meetings, would be public records. This is another one where, for the most part, you can let staff deal with this. They will respond to most of the public records requests we get. The reason we really kind of talk about this in our board training is because we need to be aware of information you are receiving that staff does not get copied on. And that could be paper letters you're receiving from the public. If it's something you're taking into consideration as a board member, you can either just give it to staff or you can copy it and give it to staff. The biggest one tends to be emails. Now, we have a city system where if it comes through the city system, we have a copy of that email, like through the city board email, we have a copy of it. The trick comes in a response. If you respond to that citizen from a private email, we would advise that you copy a staff member so there's a record of it on the city server. If you don't do that, your response isn't saved as a public record. And then we would get into a territory where if we ever got a public record request, we're going to need to be searching your personal email. And there's ways to do that, but again, our suggestion and kind of best practices would be to just keep copying in a staff member whenever you're responding from your personal system, so it stays on the city server, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the big public record, I guess, topic to discuss. And then I can move into ethics unless anyone has questions on that. Seeing none, ethics is
Actually, I do, Amy.
Okay,
It's
go
me
ahead.
again. Okay, with what you just said, it raised the question in my mind. If somebody says that we responded to them and we didn't copy a staff member, that gives somebody the right to go through all of our personal emails, whether they're in fact telling you the truth or not. That makes me a little uneasy.
No, not necessarily. So this is a person saying, I got this email from Margie and there's no requirement that you have to CC a staff member. So the fact that you didn't doesn't like trigger any automatic rights. It's just what we're advising kind of as a no-brainer for you, that let's say so I'll use Lynn as an example again. If she's using her private email and she's not copying Kelly, and someday we get a public records request or she's not copying Brandon, and someday we have a request for any correspondence that Lynn has had with citizens in the month of February 2022 relating to sustainability. And she would have to go and find all those records in her personal system. Whereas if she had been copying Brandon, that's something city staff can take care of.
So we're not actually at risk as a private citizen simply by serving on a board.
We
Our
can't answer
personal
your
email
question.
gone
To be
through.
honest with you, as far as I know, no court has taken this up. So our best,
I mean, I'm all for copying
is-
Brandon, I'll do that, but I just,
is to copy, to always copy a staff member. And then if there's a request and somebody says, well, I sent it to her and she responded from her personal email, and now she's lying and says, if we can go to the court and say, I always copy the staff member in this. I'll sign an affidavit that I always copy this, and this is my practice. It's consistent. I do that. A court is less likely to say, okay, we'll go into your computer system and look for stuff, because but
And
the
it makes it
honest answer
easier.
is
Yes.
nobody has had a case yet.
Okay, and it makes it easier for the city to back up the board member
Yep.
if
Yep.
there's a history. Okay, thank you.
So the last one is nice, short and sweet. It's just ethics. You have really good materials that were published by the state in your packet if you ever have questions. But in general, there are two kind of restrictions that are placed upon you as board members. The first restriction is that as a board member, you can't personally profit or receive any gift, compensation because of your status as a board member, or you can't receive anything that might influence your vote. The second restriction you have is that you can't participate in a decision in which you or an immediate family member have a personal financial interest. And again, if you have any questions, the first place you can start is the packet. It provides you with a good outline to go through to determine, do I have a personal financial interest here? Am I receiving something of value that might influence my vote? Keep in mind that even if you don't have a legal obligation to abstain from voting, sometimes there are practical considerations. If the perception isn't great, there may be a reason for you to abstain from voting. And if at any point you have a question, that is something you can certainly contact our office, myself, Lynn, Dave, to talk about. And I don't think Lynn talked about recusals, so I'll cover it really quickly. If you are going to recuse yourself from a vote, the big thing is that you don't participate in the discussion leading into the vote. I think the AG's office recommends that you leave the room. We understand that that could be disruptive to your meeting. So again, the big thing is just don't participate in the discussion, sit there, and then when the vote comes, don't participate in the vote. And that's ethics. So if you have any questions on ethics, like I said, or any questions on any of the things that Lynn and I covered that you don't ask tonight, that come to you after or in a specific situation, again, our office is always there. Just give us a call.
Okay.
That kind of wraps up our presentation unless there's any questions.
Brad, have all of our questions been answered regarding holding meetings that are not part of our regular meeting?
I think so.
Okay. I know that you and I had tended to have the most questions about that because we're the ones trying to do them all the time. Okay, is there anything else, anybody? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all your insights and your 85 pages of whatever. Thank you. Okay, maybe it was 8,500. I don't know. Anyway, we appreciate it. Thank you. And that chart you sent is the table of organization chart is really fine too. It's just so tiny at 1 point type when it's printed on a regular size sheet that obviously we'll all want to look at that on our computer where we can blow it up to read it, right? So good thing it's electronic. Okay, well then moving on. The next thing on our agenda tonight is environment justice.
For this, I'm gonna pass over to Kelly. This I'll just give you a little. Well, I guess Kelly, you can give the background on it. You know more than I do about it.
Sure. Well, thank you, Brandon, for the intro. We have an item on the SAB agenda that was referred back from City Council, referred to SAB. It was a resolution that was brought forward by Mayor Palmieri during the last council meeting. And it's something that council members agreed that they would like the SAB to look at a little bit deeper. What it is what I can do is environmental justice is really meant to take a look at the areas in the city, certain census tracts and that sort of thing, and then look at different indicators as far as, oh, I'm trying to share my screen here. Sorry, those are my kids. I'm sure they'll love that picture. To take a look at, different census tracts and then how environmental indicators impact certain areas of the city. So what I have up here is the EPA website, and this is kind of the place that city staff is starting to really look at this subject matter. This is something that staff, we have not really done any research on. So what we're doing today is really just bringing it to your attention, and we are going to be doing quite a bit of research and outreach to other communities and state and federal officials to get more information on this in the future. So hopefully in the next month or two, in the next couple of meetings, we can bring information back to you at each meeting, and we can really have a meaningful conversation of what this would mean for Oshkosh, and then work with you to send that a resolution back to council for consideration. So I just wanted to show you this website. If you have time, it's the EPA website, and they have a website called Environmental Justice. And on here, you'll see that they do have a definition that they have on their website. Environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policy. So this is really something that I know there's many aspects of this that the city is already doing. A, just because by law we have to. B, just because it is maybe goals of the council that they've set for us already. But we do want to take a deeper look at it and see if there's anything more we can potentially do, and really bring that forward to SAB, so you all have a more, a greater idea of, what kind of is already being done here in Oshkosh, and maybe what are some ideas of what other communities do, with environmental justice in their community. So with that, like I mentioned, we will be coming forward with some more information. Unfortunately, it was a little too late when we got the resolution from council, and then when the SAB agenda went out. But I think in the next month or two, we'll be able to put together quite a bit of information and share that with you, and hopefully have some good conversations regarding it. So with that, I know that we didn't send anything along, in the packet, because we really didn't have anything prepared. It was just kind of an initial introduction. So I know a lot of you do not have that background information, but does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Bob?
Sure.
Okay.
So was there a resolution that's already been provided to the council that's now being kicked back to us?
There was the resolution, it was a draft resolution that was not given to the whole council. There were some examples, so that it's our job to come up with a resolution. The council agenda item, I believe, was just resolution regarding environmental justice. So
It was a topic of conversation between the council members.
yes.
Okay. All right. That's all I have right now.
Okay.
Okay, Brad?
Thanks, Kelly. It sounds like we're kind of just in the initial stages of talking through this and thinking about this and gathering information. I guess I'm just curious, like, what is it that you are looking for SAB to do in terms of the environmental justice resolution? I mean, is it just meant to sort of say Oshkosh wants to be environmentally just, or are there specific things?
I'll be perfectly honest with you right now. I'm not entirely sure. So that's why we're kind of on a fact-finding mission right now, with talking with other communities that have it. The city of Wausau, I believe, was the other city in Oshkosh, or excuse me, in Wisconsin, I believe was the first one that did just pass a
And I think
similar resolution.
Evanston, Kelly, wasn't it Evanston, Illinois?
Illinois, and we found some of the larger cities, Seattle, Portland. We've been looking at a lot of information already. So I don't know I don't know the answer to your question, but I'm hoping at the next meeting, next couple of meetings, we'll have a little bit more, a better idea of how SAB could be involved, or, how, we can look for your input in this resolution that would have an impact in the city.
Sure.
And if I
Okay,
can just
that makes sense.
chime in on, if I can just add it, because Kelly and I were in the same meeting with that, and we talked about it, is something that, at this point, I think at this point, we just wanted to make you aware of it and then give us a chance to do a little bit of digging and looking and saying, how does this work with some of the things we already have with Oshkosh? So does it fit into our strategic plan? Do we think we need a change there? Or, does it fit into some of the other plans? And we just haven't had the time to completely go through and pull that together yet. So that's why it's not on your agenda for any kind of action tonight, because we didn't have enough time to get all that done yet.
Okay, I'm going to go to Aaron, who's our sitting council liaison.
Thank you. Brad, from my perspective at least, because I talked to Lori about this before it was brought to council. I think she wanted to pass a resolution, affirming the city's support for, environmental justice and a bunch of other things included. We didn't get the resolution ahead of time. She had a copy, but so we didn't get a chance to read it. But typically what council does is when a new topic like that is brought up, they like it to go through a committee that it's relevant for before it's just brought to council for a vote. So I think we as a council wanted it to go through SAB because that's where it was relevant. But I don't know what action Lori is looking for through that resolution, or if it's just simply more symbolic. So that would be probably a question for her if she's at the next meeting.
Thank you, Aaron. Now we'll go to Bob, who's had his hand up also.
Sure.
And has a little experience with that council stuff.
So I guess, moving forward in regards to the discussion of shaping a resolution or shaping a stance on environmental justice for the Oshkosh community, it'd be good to kind of see what that initial resolution that's being talked about. It's actually now considered a public document because it's been talked about at a council level. So I hope that's made available to us to be able to look at. And then, so not really any comments or questions, but then what's the date of this meeting that this was discussed between the council so that board members can go back, SAB members can go back and look at that and view that to get maybe a little bit more context of what the council was kind of thinking about?
The January 25th council meeting, the most recent one. So yeah, our packets went out the 31st. So just 3 days, we didn't quite have enough time to do what we wanted to do.
Yep. And I would say that that this is a great opportunity for the SAB to be part of creating this path and this vision. And so I'm very pleased that the SAB is going to be provided this opportunity to shape this policy or resolution as to whatever might become. So thank you.
And Kelly, did you say that was on the 25th of January? Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
towards the end of the meeting, I believe, right, City Attorney Lawrenson? Yeah.
Okay, so we might want to scroll ahead.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, does anybody else have any questions on that? Is your hand up again, Aaron, or is that from before?
No, I was just gonna say, I think the intent was to have the resolution at this meeting, but it was a timing issue, I believe. Because Lori had it written up and she wanted you guys to look at it, but I think it was just a timing issue. But it should be available to the public, I believe.
I'm sure we'll have no trouble having it in our next packet, so we'll get a good look at it beforehand. Okay, anybody else on this issue? Thank you, Kelly. This is how we get you to come to one of our meetings.
Oh, that's, I do tune in, but yeah, this was something that was more at a council level. So I told Brandon that I would chime in and help with it. So we'll be seeing more of each other.
We love having you here. Thank you. Okay, well, that takes us up to our agenda items for a future meeting. And we have some things that are already listed on our agenda, like our native landscaping ordinance.
I can give a quick update on that.
Okay,
So I'm not sure if when it got sent over, but Michelle and Pat had worked, I believe, on a rewrite for the native plant ordinance or the long noxious weed ordinance. So following, again, because that the new rules for boards and commissions got passed in December. So when I received that document, I had to follow that flow chart. And so step one in that flow chart was to provide it over, send it over to the department head, Kelly. And then there was some conversations internally. And then basically, I think this Friday, I have a meeting scheduled with a number of department heads so we can all have a long discussion about that. And then I think our March meeting will be able to come back with kind of the staff revisions to that ordinance for SAB to review, and it can be I think it can be on the agenda as a discussion and action probably. And so yeah, that's kind of the update for that. Just following the new rules.
it may take a little practice. We'll all get good at this, folks.
Yep.
Okay, Erin, I see your hand is up. Is that, do you have something to add to this? Maybe that's from before. Okay, if there is something, just let us know. The second thing on our agenda already for a future meeting is to provide staff with guidance for preparation of a resolution in support of environmental justice, which is just what we talked about. So we already have that on there. And then we also have our energy analysis update. Is there anything you'd like to say about that, Brandon or Kelly or anybody?
I think that was a Brad top thing.
That's Brad needs to check in with Brandon again, and Brad can provide an update next time.
So yeah,
Okay.
I think that was because Brad was off right for most of January, so I think we had it as a March item sometime when he got back in between then and the next March
Not
meeting.
off, Brandon, away. I've had to correct several people on this.
Right, what did you call it?
Study abroad.
Shepherding the students and Belize or something.
Yes.
Brad came back with a whole bunch of new birds he'd never seen and a sunburn.
Yep.
Okay, so we have those three items for a future meeting. We also will be having, no, that's a couple months off, never mind. I was going to say we're going to be working with the students again, but we won't be meeting with them until we won't have them until May, probably. I think it will be our May meeting. So that gives us a couple of other meetings to work on this. Okay. Is there anything else anybody needs to see on a future agenda or hopes to see or would like to recommend that however we do it on that chart now, whatever the proper verbiage is? Okay, seeing none. Our next meeting will be on Monday, March 7th.
1 second, Margie. Pat has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pat. Go ahead. think you might be on mute.
Okay, do we want to follow up on the salt-wise thing in terms of the ordinance change? You know, in terms of the problems with our current ordinance, do we want to follow up on that at all? Is that something that should be up for discussion?
I think we probably want that on a future agenda item between now and fall for sure, so that we can do some public education, if nothing else, right?
Well, I
I'd
think
say yes while it's fresh in our mind.
it was the public education piece, but then there was also the piece where she said our current ordinance needs looking at with the
Right.
requirement that you keep something sprinkled on, right? She picked out a specific part of our current rules. I'm assuming those rules are part of the ordinance, right? Part of the city code or not? Yeah. So do we want to follow up on looking into that or not?
I would think we do.
I would guess yes, you know, at least to look at it. And
I think we maybe need to see the actual code to know how that can be changed. Does that make
right,
sense?
so that right, but so that would be something to look at a future
Yes.
meeting. Yeah.
Okay, so we have Saltwise down. I guess I had written that down before because it was on our agenda and I just skipped over it.
So to be clear, that would be like, for instance, we would want to review that ordinance specifically in
Yes.
March.
In
Okay.
March or April or sometime like March. Yeah, but while it's fresh in our minds, that would be in March. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Brad's right. It would be good to do something with it sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
And of course, Brandon will be receiving that media kit, so there'll be lots of Facebook postings in there, I'm sure, that will still be relevant this year. I don't know, was I the only one who had to shovel this morning? I wasn't in town, so I didn't know if you had to shovel here too. Okay, anything else anyone has? Do you see anything, Brandon? No? Okay. In that case, our next meeting will be on Monday, March 7th. And will we still be virtual for our March meeting?
I would lean on Lynn for clarification, but I think there are some boards meeting in person if we want to. So, is that true? I guess I haven't really thought of that for a while.
You just caught me. I was just about to leave meeting. It's up to the individual boards right now. So you could decide if you want to go back in person, is my understanding.
Okay. Okay. I see one head being shaken. Is there anybody who has a strong preference to go back to in person? Okay, seeing none, let's stay virtual. Okay, with that, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So move to adjourn.
A second.
Second.
Thank you. And Brandon will call the roll.
Okay, motion to adjourn. We'll do the roll call here. Ms. Helquest,
Aye.
Ms. Marone,
Aye.
Ms. Oliver,
Aye.
Mr. Peschel,
Aye.
Mr. Spanbauer,
Aye.
Mr. Wojciechowski,
Aye.
and Ms. Davy.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Thanks. Bye.